Conklin and Company with 13 ABC Action News anchor Lee Conklin. First with what's happening behind the headlines. And Take 3, our panel of political analysts.
And good morning, everyone. Welcome into another edition of Conklin and Company. Today on the program, the experience that is college football at the Big House and the Horseshoe. The Blades OSU beat writer on the Buckeyes poised to challenge or take the attendance title away from the University of Michigan, the national leader in that department for most of 4 decades. So much for Congress to address this summer into the fall, but little time on the actual schedule to do it. 13 ABC Washington Bureau Chief Jacqueline Policastro joining us a little bit later on, Take 2. But first, he wants to be the next governor of Ohio. He's been the Cuyahoga County executive for the last 7 years. Democrat Ed Fitzgerald trying to get his name and his message out there to locales other than Northeast Ohio. He stopped by our studios recently on how he plans to do just that.
A little bit more than 120 days to go, and you're going to see us kind of ramping things up in terms of advertising and that kind of thing. What people know in Ohio is that they're not really satisfied with what they're getting right now, but they need to know what the alternative is. And as the person that represents that alternative, that's my challenge.
It was kind of a vague statement. What people know in Ohio, maybe some people know in Ohio.
Most people, I think, yeah.
Well, Republicans would say that this state, and John Kasich has led this comeback of sorts, that unemployment is down from where it was 2, 3, 4 years ago,
yeah.
Certainly way down from where it was in the Great Recession. So how do you respond to that when Governor Kasich will say, hey, listen, we've led this comeback, and you say most people will say they're dissatisfied with what has happened?
Yeah, because look, unemployment has gone down across the whole country. So I don't know if there's a single state in the country where unemployment is higher now than it was during the recession. The question is, how are we doing compared to other states? And what kind of jobs are we actually creating? If you've got a state where 50% of the state is living paycheck to paycheck, then for most people they'd say that is not an economy that's doing that great. Now in 2013 we were ranked, I believe it was 44th in the country in job creation, and this year I believe our ranking right now is 38th. So yeah, the unemployment rate is down, of course, because the whole national economy recovered, but we're not getting the kind of jobs in Ohio that we need so that regular middle-class families can really make it and stay in the middle class. Okay. That's what's not working.
All right, and you win in November, so how do you bring those kinds of jobs that enable people to live a better life than paycheck to paycheck?
Sure. Well, first, one of the mistakes that we've made in the last few years is we're giving tax breaks to the wealthiest people in the state, and we're actually raising taxes on the poorest people in the state. One of the things that Governor Kasich did not disclose back when he ran in 2010 was he said he was going to cut income taxes, but he didn't disclose that he was going to raise taxes, sales taxes, for instance, that he was going to cut funding to local schools. That's affected school districts in your viewing area. That he was going to cut funds to entities like Lucas County and the city of Toledo. That has forced communities to raise their taxes. So the tax burden has actually gotten tougher in many cases on middle class families. We have job creation programs, but too often they have been giving basically handouts to big corporations that haven't actually created jobs. And if you're going to give assistance to a business, which I don't have a problem with, you've got to make a requirement that if they don't create the jobs that they promise, they have to give the money back. And we haven't had enough of that kind of accountability in the last 4 years.
Isn't it easy to say that, well, you could say that's from the Democratic playbook, to go criticize the Republican who gives the tax breaks to the wealthy, and then I'm the champion for the middle class. Isn't that the easy way to go? To make that blanket statement.
It's the right thing to do, though. I mean, look, if you made over $350,000 a year in the last couple years, you got something like a $6,000 tax cut. If you were on a fixed income, you got a sales tax increase. You might have lost your homestead exemption. There's other taxes that went up as well. So it's just a question of tax fairness. If we're going to give tax cuts, why would we actually take money out of the city of Toledo, out of Lucas County, out of basically every county in Ohio, send the money to Columbus, and then give tax cuts for a very small group of people? As a major business publication in the state said, that's not really tax cutting, it's tax shifting. And it may be part of a playbook, but it has the additional advantage of being true.
How is being the Cuyahoga County executive, how's that prepared you to lead the entire state? I mean,
sure.
It puts you in a better place to lead millions and millions of people.
Right. Well, number one is I already represent over 1 million people. So Cuyahoga County represents 10% of the state right now. And my background has been, I'm in my 7th year of being a manager in government. So I was a mayor of a city and now a county executive of the biggest county in the state. You compare that to Governor Kasich's experience, which was being with Lehman Brothers, which I don't think was a great preparation for running the state, and I think that has shown. But what have I done as a county executive? I made government more efficient. I balanced budgets without relying on tax increases. I made investments in things like job creation, early childhood education, law enforcement. Those are the kind of priorities that have worked in our county, and I think they would work statewide as well.
Well, I want to ask you one question about education, because
Sure.
we have superintendents on this program, Mr. Fitzgerald, before every election, and they come here with their campaign sign, please vote for our levy.
Right.
You go back to this DeRolf decision. How many years ago that said this was unconstitutional?
That's right. 1997.
And it becomes such a burden on the taxpayer.
That's right.
And those who are on fixed incomes. But the schools need the money. That's how they function. So you're not king, but you're governor. What about education going forward?
Well, I'm glad you brought up DeRolf, because it was in 1997 that the Supreme Court, not once, not twice, but several times, found the whole system to be unconstitutional. And without getting too much into constitutional law, why was it unconstitutional? Real simple, because the state wasn't picking up its fair share and they were forcing all the costs down to the local level. That's exactly what's happened at an aggravated pace now, an accelerated pace in the last 4 years. Why? Going back to what I said before, because they took money out of local communities. That's why there's an estimate, by the way, that local property tax levies for schools have gone up in the last 4 years by over 30%. Why did that happen? Because the state has been walking away.
But they weren't
from
stagnant
its
under a
commitment.
Strickland administration either.
That is correct, but they've actually accelerated, because especially in his first budget, Governor Kasich made enormous cuts that resulted in the layoff of teachers and forced more of those difficult decisions down to the local level. Look, let me put it this way. I've had to reduce my costs as a county official. I've had to reduce them when I was a city official. The state budget is bigger than it's ever been, by billions of dollars. How many school districts can say they have millions of dollars more than they did a few years ago? So all the difficult decisions are now being made at the local level, which is why property tax keeps growing and growing and growing while the state steps away. There's not a magic solution for it, but it's just, is the state going to do something real fundamental, and that is step up and actually pay their fair share of education expenses? And they're not, and they should.
In closing, why are you the best person for this job, this monumental job?
I've got the right priorities. I've made government work before. I've reformed it, made it more efficient, but I've also made investments in things that matter: safety, jobs, early childhood education. Governor Kasich, with all due respect to him, he doesn't have those priorities. When he goes around, for instance, and talks about that the economy is a miracle, how many people that are watching this program do you think have experienced an economy that's a miracle? It's been a miracle for a very small group of people, but for most people, they're saying, why am I being left out of this economy? And government is part of what can bring everybody along instead of just a small group.
Best of luck in the campaign going forward. Ed Fitzgerald wants to be the next governor of the great state of Ohio here, and we'll see you down the road as the campaign heats up over the course of the summer into the fall. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Ed Fitzgerald. And when we come back on Conklin and Company, we'll head to Washington to visit with our bureau chief, 13 ABC bureau chief Jacqueline Policastro, right after.